Right. Thank you so much. And congrats on the upcoming release, Joe. That's great to hear. And indeed, as you already mentioned, I am a little bit ahead of you in terms of book releases. I have a few behind me. You mentioned them already. Though my most recent one is actually not a business book. It's a novel, science fiction novel, Glitches of Gods, that I published in June. And while the topic is AI has completely changed my way of working, and I'm pretty sure it's going to change the way people work who attend this webinar as well. Though I must admit, I had already written my entire novel by the time ChatGPT came out. So I couldn't really use it at the time except for giving me feedback on what I had already written. I did that, and that was useful. I was able to improve my prose. But I'm working on the sequel now and the second novel, and I'm going all in with AI. I've decided I want to use it in every phase of the project. And it's interesting that I seem to be the exception to the rule because I'm a member of a couple of Facebook groups of novelists and writers. And overall, AI is seen as a demon by creatives. It is the stealing people's jobs and it makes people less creative and so on. And I'm like, okay, if that's how people feel, then I think there we go. Then I think I'm going to win. In field after field, we are finding that a human working with AI, co-intelligence outperforms all but the best humans working without an AI, said Ethan Mollick in his book Co-Intelligence. And I find that myself too. I'm trying to use AI wherever I can, and I find new use cases all the time. Like yesterday, I asked ChatGPT to give me Amazon keywords that I could use for advertising of my novel. And I fed it my whole book to ask it to give me comps. Comp is jargon for comparable authors, basically competitors who are other novelists who write novels in the same way, style, and genre as I do. A year and a half ago, I spent hours finding my comps, my comparable authors on the best-selling lists and digging through Amazon categories, etc. But I just let ChatGPT read my entire book in 10 seconds, and it gave me a list of comps 5 seconds later, and there was a lot of overlap with what I had found a year and a half ago. It saves me hours, this kind of work. So the ability to outsource crappy, meaningless tasks to the AI can be freeing. The worst parts of the job go to the AI so that we get to focus on what we love to do. But we have to remember it's a general purpose technology. There is no single manual that we can use. And I find new uses all the time. As this week, I use it to find my comps. I had not come up with that until a few days ago. And yeah, as I said, I want to go all in, but I found a couple of trends, a couple of things that seem to be happening according to other authors, other writers out there. I'm just capturing whatever I can find because I think this is going to be very impactful or is already being impactful in some organizations. And that's where pattern languages, pattern libraries start. You observe what is happening and then you observe how people respond. And if there are similarities in the responses, then you find patterns. So this is what the unFIX language is all about. So it starts with observations of what is happening. And one observation is that we have to become an MSkilled worker. I'm pretty sure some of you know the term the T-skilled person. We've been using that for 2 decades, I think, specialize in one area and then branch out in a few others. We have been taught in the Agile community that we need T-skilled people on teams. Well, we need to be M-skilled these days. What does that mean? It means that you have multiple specializations temporarily, but the horizontal bar generalization is even more important. Because the bigger the picture, the more unique the potential human contribution, said David Epstein in his book, Range, Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World. He said, our greatest strength is the exact opposite of narrow specialization. And the great rewards will through to those who can take conceptual knowledge from one problem domain and then apply it in an entirely new one. That is where we as humans can make the big difference, by working in multiple domains and then drawing parallels and seeing opportunities because we apply stuff from one domain to another. That is what our contribution could be. AI is expected to change the world of work. Experience suggests it's already doing so by breaking down the distinction between generalists and specialists. We need both skills now, wide knowledge, but mastery of a particular area. And I would even say temporary mastery of multiple areas, because the half-time of knowledge keeps shrinking. I'm sure many of you on this webinar are, like me, not using Google search anymore. We just ask all our questions to the AIs. So search engine optimization is dead. Why bother optimizing something that is not even being used anymore? So that was a job that existed for 15 years or something. It's behind us. Prompt engineering is a job right now, but is expected to disappear within a year. This goes on and on, where specializations emerge and then a few years later they disappear. And it's as if we are knowledge nomads, as I call it. We have to temporarily dive into a domain, make that a return on investment, and then move on when the AIs take over. And then what kind of specializations are they? We can make a difference as techies, athletes, artisans, and communicators. I don't qualify as an athlete, I'm afraid. I have been a techie, but I can definitely be a communicator. That's where I would like to focus. There will be an increasing demand for roles that prioritize complex problem solving, creative thinking, and technical literacy, according to the book Future of Work. And there's a greater emphasis on soft skills such as emotional intelligence, the ability to collaborate, bring ideas together. And that is where the human touch will play an irreplaceable role and where generalists will thrive. Again, the concept of the generalist. So what kind of roles are they? Creative professions, artists, designers, anyone who adds color outside the lines, social interaction experts, from HR specialists, ensuring workplace harmony among bots and humans. I like that one. And tech savvies, as long as there's tech, then we need people who understand how the tech works. It doesn't mean that your entire job disappears. Most often it is actually parts of your job that disappear and will be replaced by other things. I was pretty good at making PowerPoint slides, and I was pretty good at writing blog posts and things like that. Those skills are behind me. I can much more easily delegate a lot of that work to ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and everything. I need to focus on the more human touch. Like, I spend more time now emphasizing before and after my talks at events, speaker dinner, coffees, whatever, than I might usually do, because that's where I can still make a difference and where Claude and Gemini and Copilot cannot meaningfully take over from me. So that's where my focus needs to be as a speaker. I will still be a public speaker. I will still be a writer, but the focus in my job is changing. Another trend, and that seems an obvious one, we have to embrace digital team members. Nice example. I'm a big Star Trek fan. So I'm sure some people here on this call are as well. I loved Enterprise and Deep Space Nine, but there was one thing that always bothered me. That was that Commander Data was created by one person, Dr. Soong, according to Star Trek stories. And I always thought that was silly. How can one person, one human, create such a magnificent humanoid android? I thought that was a bit silly. But now when I look at myself, I'm here in my home office. I am working with a whole team of digital assistants, Claude, Perplexity, Midjourney, DALL-E. I use them all. I move information between them back and forth. It is like I'm a conductor of an orchestra of digital agents. They're not talking with each other yet, but that will be solved within a year or so. And then I can just give them a job and they will have to work it out among each other. So that's a digital team with me as the only human there. And that will become the norm, such blended teams. They will not be an exception anymore. All will interact with digital co-workers, with AI machines that assist us. And Hendrik Nieberg wrote in his article, Agile in the Age of AI, he wrote, 1 or 2 people with strong prompt engineering skills and access to a top Gen AI model outperform traditional agile cross-functional teams in his practical experience already. So AI will not just be the functionality of a tool, but it's a teammate, a machine teammate with an increasing level of autonomy. And now I understand how it was possible for Dr. Zoom in Star Trek to create that humanoid android, because of course he had a team, only his teammates were advanced AIs and robots and so on. And he was the only human on that team working on commander data, that android. And of course, being the only human, he took the credit for all the work, as I do in my team of digital assistants. I take the credit for everything that they do. But that makes a difference. It also has a consequence for our emotional well-being, our state of mind, because how much fun is it to be the only human on a team with digital assistants? I'm not going to have a coffee with ChatGPT. I need to find someone else to do that with. So this has consequences, and we'll see how that's going to play out. Another thing that is being reported is increased reteaming. Practical example, very concrete. I am now part of a large team of around 12 people. We're working on something big that we're going to announce later this year or early next year. It needs a lot of things being set up. One of it is a new brand identity, for example. So I am on a sub-team of 2 people, me and a brand manager, discussing logo, fonts, colors, etc. And we have a mission to create the brand identity, and that will take 2 weeks or something like that. So that's a mission team, a small sub-team in a larger super team. This becomes the norm according to some people. The global workforce must function as a cohesive unit, necessitating the development of teaming skills. We have to get better at that teaming on the fly, as they already do in the airline industry. Have been doing so for decades, basically. We have to coordinate, to collaborate effectively, even in the absence of stable team structures. And Hendrik Nieberg said the same. Maybe each team of 1 or 2 people can be seen as a single team member in a larger super team or something, he said. And then we do our traditional rituals like retros and sprint planning. We do that at the super team level, at the team of teams level, and not at the level of that tiny team of 1 or 2 people, because they can just chat with each other at any moment. So that's another interesting development that I am following. And there's already unFIX patterns around that, by the way, the teaming options that some might be interested in. You find on the unFIX.com website as one of our pattern sets. Another interesting opportunity for AI is to discover better experiences. It is said that AI-powered tools can create highly personalized encounters that enhance the customer experience and the customer engagement. For example, why would you send everyone on your mailing list exactly the same email if you know what kind of people they are, their gender, their age, whatever? You could create images on the fly that look more like them in your marketing communication, so that everyone receives an email that not only has custom text, but also custom images created specifically for them. This is happening already. The sector most likely to benefit from early AI transformation is the customer experience. And I say yay to that, because my God, do I have stories about bad customer experiences. I complain about that almost every day. And Hendrik Nieberg offered another example of how we can improve that. He said, we can create mock users by asking an AI model to role-play particular types of users. So we could do mock user research and interviews using our AI agents. Imagine that. You create 100 different AI agents that mimic users, that mimic your clients, and then they are going to give you feedback on your product. We could ask those mock users to try our systems directly and give us feedback. I think that's a great opportunity for reducing cycle time and to get 80% of the feedback very fast, and then reserve the final bit for the real customers that we may not see on a weekly basis anymore. We can reserve that for a once per month moment, perhaps. It is similar to what I did with my novel, actually, because I used Grammarly, I used Pro Writing Aid, I used ChatGPT. Those were 3 different AIs that I use to improve the prose of my novel. And only after that, I gave it to a paid copy editor who said, "Oh, wow, the level of this writing is pretty great." He was really happy with that because it meant that he could spend his time on the more intricate stuff that AIs would not find. It's a bit similar. So you should reserve that real engagement with your customers, your clients, for the more difficult conversations, the more interesting conversations, and let the AIs discover and fix all the simple problems that they could find if you have 100 mock users doing that. It considerably can speed up your product development. Another thing I found is I see it with that sub-team that I have now of just 2 people working on a brand identity. We don't even need to create a meeting for that team because, hey, it's just, are you available right now? Let's have a quick chat. And the rest is asynchronous on Slack, on Miro boards that we share with the larger super teams where everyone can give comments on our work. I just did that this morning. I researched fonts. I have 12 options, have my number 1 preference, but I shared it with the larger team to get feedback and to see what kind of comments they have. No meetings whatsoever, because why would we? It makes no sense. Smaller teams means less need for meetings and other internal coordination rituals. If people sit next to each other, physically or digitally, they can talk informally whenever needed. And of course, Microsoft has discovered this trend as well, so they are upgrading their tools to make that even easier. With AI, every meeting becomes a digital artifact. So a meeting is not a goal in itself. It's just a means to an end. And we can achieve those ends in other ways too, with asynchronous collaboration with digital tools. So the meetings are more than a point in time. You can engage and interact with other people through those documents anytime you want, whenever it works best for you. So that's something very interesting. One of the most fascinating developments that I have seen is the automation of management. Now, I have been to one of the leading companies in this area, Hire, already 12 years ago in China, where I discovered that they had completely fired the middle management layers and turned the whole company into 3,000 micro enterprises that were then collaborating with each other horizontally. And management meant contracting, smart contracts on the blockchain. Lots of it has become algorithms supported with AI, and no need for middle management anymore. We see this more and more. Algorithms are increasingly used to manage permanent employees, including full-time employed delivery drivers, parcel carriers, warehouse workers, and so on. This is in an article called Algorithmic Management. And the Chinese companies are leading the way, actually. They reinvent the role of management with direct access for frontline employees. They have all the data. They can make certain decisions. For other decisions, they have to escalate to the algorithms and then swarm across the opportunities. Tesla is doing the same thing. In Tesla factories, the AI decides what are the product features, what are the priorities, and then people swarm to what they would like to do. They voluntarily sign up for what they want to contribute. No manager, resource manager, or project manager moving them around. They know what the objectives are and what needs to be achieved. So I find it super interesting, and this is only going to be accelerated through AI as far as I can see. Last trend, and that seems like an obvious one, AI or machines have taken the level of data, they have climbed to the level of information, they're climbing to the level of knowledge. There's only one level left on this ladder, which is wisdom. That is where we humans can still make a difference. What is the wise thing to do? And fortunately, at least that's how I experience it, I have a bit more time to think about what is the wise thing to do, because I delegate work to my co-assistants, my co-workers, find me keywords for the book or write a description of my target audience of this book by just analyzing the text and so on. Saves me hours of work. So I can think more about the story, which is what I would like to do, and the characters, etc. But I need to be careful where to draw the line, because a concrete example, I am now working on characters and family trees for my next novel, and I asked Midjourney to generate pictures of each character, and that's super cool. I mean, I was never able to do that before. You would have to hire artists, and as a novelist, you don't have money for that at the very start. So it's all in your head, but it's nice to actually see your characters generated by AI. However, this does have a consequence. The AI has now decided what the character looks like, so that is going to influence me as a writer. There is the influence of Midjourney in, or will be in my book, because the tool decided what the character looks like. When we use AI to generate our first draft, said Ethan Mollick, we rely on machines to do the hard work, and maybe we do not always engage in critical thinking anymore. We might miss the opportunity to learn from our own mistakes and the chance to develop our own style. And that is where we have to make a difference still as humans. What is the wise thing to do? What is the ethical thing to do? And so on. Machines collapse the hierarchy so that humans can ascend it, and only together, humans and intelligent machines working collaboratively, we can bring the insights available. And there's some things that the tools need to do, the digital systems, and there's some things that we humans need to do. And we have to be wise in terms of deciding where to draw the boundaries. Those were 7 trends that I found. They are part of a larger set. In case you're interested, just follow me, because an online course will be available within a week or 2. I'm working on that, and there will be 20 plus of these trends that I'm diving into. If anyone's interested in my novel, by the way, you find it on every platform out there. Glitches of Gods. It got 5-star ratings from several editorial reviewers. I'm very proud of that. And as I said at the very beginning, this is how patterns begin. So I've already added a pattern set to the unFIX library of AI use cases. So what are the typical patterns of usage of AI assistants? And that pattern set will only evolve, I'm pretty sure, because I discover use cases on an almost weekly basis. But that's how pattern libraries evolve. We see what is happening in the world, how people respond to the changes, and if there is similarities in how people respond, then we find patterns, and those patterns can then be communicated to others so that they can develop their own way of working. That was it. I hope some of this was interesting to you, whether there's MSkilled people, or collaborating with digital teammates, or automating management. I think there's a lot of fascinating stuff happening. And we're only at the beginning, I think, of completely new ways of working. Back to you, Joe.
Yeah. The Agile Kata is a universal pattern for continuous agile improvement. That's how I define Agile Kata. Kata itself has a long tradition, not only in martial arts, but also in manufacturing, lean manufacturing. This is really applying Kata in the world of knowledge work and to improve agility within organizations. And because it's called universal, it really attracts all of the elements within an organization, team level, departmental level, or even organizational level. So this scales everywhere. So this is really for organizational agility. So when I was looking at this topic, and we had chatted about AI before, I really see 2 major areas of application in regards to AI, our topic today. And that is really, you could use Kata and Agile Kata in particular to introduce AI to your organization, right? So this is a common challenge right now. It's looking at just shared some of those visions and some steps we see and trends we see. Yeah, but many organizations right now are challenged with the idea of how to bring that into an organization ethically, legal, and all of those aspects of it. And the Agile Kata could guide you in this process. So I see that as one of the elements. And the other one is really using AI when you're using Agile. So the Agile Kata, so when you're actually applying the Agile Kata, let's say on a team level, how to incorporate those. And you made some comments about that, how this could be done. So let's take a little bit of a look into these two areas. The Agile Kata, here's like an image I often share, is it's very simple to explain, right? That should not make you believe it's easy to do. There is 4 basic steps where you would be looking at a challenge. That would be your first thing. And Jurgen, for example, mentioned about the role of middle management, leadership, and very often the challenge, the direction, often in any kind of improvement within an organization is given by leadership, a potential area for AI support. And I found it very cool to experiment with challenge statements by utilizing Gen AI tools for sure. They help you improve the quality of those statements. They give you a different angle on it. And they basically also take your own bias out of the statement itself. Step 2 would be to really come back into grasping your current condition, which means you're assessing the situation you're currently in. That could be, I'm brand new to AI. I might have already taken initial steps in AI, but your current condition is always, where am I right now in this particular step? So AI, again, could help you with assessment questions, can help you with ideas of how to assess the situation in regards to whatever challenge you had defined. A small step forward, step 3 here would be the establishing a next target condition. And here again, Gen AI can help you really define what a broken down version of the overall direction could be. It's a small picture that you would like to aim for within a short period of time. And for everybody who is coming with a Scrum background to this event, that is not a sprint, right? I always have to emphasize that. So this is not a time box kind of activity, although it might be similar in length for some. It's not a sprint. There's really no time box. I think a huge value for AI is in step 4, the experimentation towards the target condition. Where we said, how can I bridge step 2 to 3? And what could I do to design experiments? So here we can see some examples here in a second of how this could look like. And you see here, supporting us here is still people involved, right? And people would be still utilizing or liberating structures for that wisdom aspect of it, right? Versus knowledge. And I think that those things will continue to exist. Now, the other thing which I wanted to make sure is, Jurgen mentioned reteaming. Agile Kata is all about reteaming based on Heidi Alphan's work on dynamic reteaming. I think that is the future of how teams will collaborate and how teams will actually make the step from 2 to 3 here in this picture in front of you, because that is a bumpy road sometimes. Experimentation sometimes succeeds, sometimes they fail. And even if they fail, the word is very strong, we're still learning something out of these experiments. And so the reteaming and having fresh, new MSkilled workers within your team definitely is a crucial piece of, I think, the future of those teams. For example, here we have used this in the past here, developing a recommendation engines in our e-commerce platform could be a challenge statement, right? We'd say we have currently nothing about recommendations in our systems. First small step would be to make certain inventory changes in our store to allow for recommendations. And then we would suggest and record experiments. And once we reach that step 3, making sure that our inventory can take recommendations, then we can make another step and another step. And those are those little dots between 3 and 1 you see here in your chart, where we're like slowly but steadily moving towards the initial challenge that was given. That is overarchingly, in a very basic overview, what Agile Kata really does for teams and organizations. Now, just taking this back to Gen AI, one more time, here's a typical board, which I used as a paper format. And just to show the opportunities here, I'm still impressed, even though I've done this now many times, but Gen AI, ChatGPT in this particular case, can read my handwriting, right? So this is amazing. You can see here how bad my handwriting is. and it can actually analyze that. So I can submit these boards in paper format or even a nicer printout, and the quality is going to increase and can actually make sense out of that. We did have I put in a couple of comments here. Emotions, empathy, not really picked up. Here's another one that was not picked up, was an agile principle. So there's still some areas for improvement, but overall, it could take away these painful kind of activities of scanning, interpreting, turning a photo into text, which we can then continue to utilize. So we're taking away a lot of chores within a team when we're working this way. So I think that is a huge advantage when we're working with Gen AI support. Another thing is here in an experimentation record of the Kata world. This is from Mike Author's book about Toyota Kata. What on the left is more like the prediction of things we see, then we do in the execution of our experiment, and then something's coming out of it, evidence in the evaluation of it. And when we're taking that in and we're taking an experimenting record, then we can actually ask, and this is fascinating here too, for recommendations, right? So we can even utilize and scan, again, handwriting, these experimenting records, and we can do a full analysis on these things. I think this is huge for us of how we work within a Kata mindset and an evidence-based mindset here going forward. So for examples, when I submitted this report into it, there were several suggestions were made that came from that record. So again, I took a picture of a paper, submitted it to ChatGPT, and I'm getting recommendations out of it. So this is truly like a partner here for a team that has additional opinions, which we can consider. I'm not saying the only ones, right? But great support here. The coaching cycle is also very impressive, right? In a Kata environment. So there are certain questions to be asked. These are like starter Kata questions where we would say, let's run those questions. Can you do like a basic coaching cycle with someone? And you see here the questions here. What is the target condition? What's the actual conditions? And we expect the learner to respond to those. And what I did was I asked ChatGPT to do a coaching cycle with me, where I said, can we do a role play? I'm the learner and you're the coach. And we just basically conducted that. And you can see here, I answered adding product information to the product inventory for recommendations based on the question that was asked, what's the target condition, right? And I just said, okay, can you do an Agile Kata coaching cycle with me? And the questions were already known, and it is the starter Kata questions. So very good. And then you would basically continue this kind of conversation. Even if you don't have a coach on your side, you can utilize, in this case, ChatGPT to be your coach and ask you these questions, because I do think they reveal a certain information. You can also ask ChatGPT to improvise here a little bit to make it a little bit interesting. But in the beginning, also for your sake as a learner new with Agile Kata, it might be just okay to start with these sort of questions you saw before. Now, this is really interesting here, and this is an extreme example, I know, but basically these are 3 steps I conducted. So I said, here we go. I started with the coaching cycle and basically said that my challenge is getting sign-offs on time so I can release, but the other departments are just not doing anything. So this is a pretty strong statement I submitted here, like the other departments are not doing anything, right? Back to ChatGPT. And then here, got it. Your challenge is not to get timely sign-offs from the other departments. And I felt like there was a little bit of anger in my comment purposely, right? And ChatGPT really toned it down quite a bit. Then I went a little stronger and I said, I hate, even a typo was here identified, I hate Sarah in the legal department. She's passive aggressive. And I think the response here is also very interesting, right? How we would react as humans to a statement like that. Let's say you are in a coaching learner relationship here. I think ChatGPT is actually really focusing on the content. It picks up on that this is a true obstacle, but it really takes it down a notch and keeps the cool. I think that's really what this is. And then ChatGPT, and I think that was interesting, they kept going, ChatGPT, with the coaching cycle. And then even I think we skipped over step 2, even you are cutting corners. So I basically accused ChatGPT here of just skipping through some important questions in the coaching cycle, and it came back to grasping the current conditions. And again, no, the frustrations didn't turn into something else, the strong language, the coaching cycle. And I think that's a lot of benefits I think we can even learn as a coach when we are confronted with obviously milder versions of what you see here in front of you, even to stay neutral, maybe not address the frustration or address it in a way that was still constructive, depending on the problem we're facing. I found that super, super interesting. Again, so from an experience perspective, by utilizing ChatGPT in my case, didn't pick up on emotions. That's the weak part, let's say, on the story, on the Agile Kata storyboard. But on the other side, it did keep the cool in these potentially conflict situations, frustrations with a team. Great for role playing, as Jurgen said before as well, right? We can utilize this for role playing, identify, learn even from ChatGPT here. If we're new with Agile Kata, the principles were not picked up. I think that's something we can teach Gen AI. I think that is an easy one to teach. Just pick up on the 12 principles, the 4 values, and put those into consideration when you give advice. Scanning chores, everything that we can bring into the knowledge base in seconds, literally, is obviously a powerful tool. I do have to say, it didn't feel like a true companion yet, right? So maybe it is that robot we saw before in Jurgen's slide sitting next to you at the table still a little bit, but I think with the day-to-day improvements in Gen AI and what is happening there, I think this is just around the corner here. So what I do see is in trends or also supporting Agile Kata, reducing the team size is definitely something, and Agile Kata teams work very fast towards their target conditions. Reteaming is already a concrete element in it. Swarming, a topic that was, or a word that was mentioned before, very much like Agile Kata works well with pair programming, mob programming, getting through these experiments. There are no sprints. So therefore the request for meetings, as we saw, and turning to collaborations, we learned, I think, is a key thing here too. If the teams are smaller and we're progressing towards a target condition rather than having time boxing, that is obviously a great benefit for that. And there's really less need for events and meetings in a style like that and more collaboration. So it can help us a lot with professional coaching. I believe scientific thinking, we can get great ideas for experiments to analyze the results of those experiments. And it can help us. And I think that is, just to leave you here with this last thought, it can really help us making adaptations to existing frameworks. One thing I do encounter a lot is that with AI and with other ways of working, especially around the patterns world, we do see a lot of teams right now breaking certain frameworks and say, hey, we benefit from certain elements of the frameworks, but we would like to add other elements to it. And AI could be a companion, but can also give you some ideas of how to restructure an existing framework to make it fit the way you work and how you would benefit from your personal, basically agile process, not personal by a person, but by team, and how you would like to operate. So there's definitely a lot of learning involved right now. So at that point, I connected a little bit Jürgen's topic and AI just in general with Agile Kata. You can always find more stuff and material on Agile Kata, because I didn't really go deep on the Kata itself on agilekata.pro.